Okay, so tonight we are making the leaven for bread. I do this usually last thing at night before I go to bed so that I can have the leaven probably ready when I wake up. So this is my starter. It has sat close to 24 hours at this point. You can see the lines up the side. It was right around here at its highest point. Now it's back down to here. So it's needing to be fed. It's ready to be fed. So what we're going to do, I've got a sort of medium-sized bowl. I've already prepped. I tend to use filtered water all the time. I put it in the kettle, and then for this step, I heat it. Like, I flip the kettle down just a little bit. So this water should be kind of warm, but not hot. Definitely not hot. I am adding 200 grams of water, or 202. Take a little bit out. Okay. So I'm keeping mine a little bit on the lighter side. So I have 197 grams. The reason for that is because the flour that I'm going to be using tomorrow is a little more dense. You won't have to worry about this. Think 200, okay? So now I add about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more of the starter. And most of the time the starter is going to be really runny, and when you see it in there, really bubbly. It smells quite sour, it smells fermented, and it probably even floats. So it's important that you do this part with your hands. You mix it up just to dissolve any little chunks or anything of that starter into the water. Your hands have healthy bacteria and yeast on them that help to make the sourdough even more active and alive. Okay, so I've got that mixed in. I'm just gonna rinse my fingers off. And flour, I'm using the same stuff, which is out of my jar, that is half rye flour and half all-purpose flour. It is important that the all-purpose flour is unbleached. Bleaching kills all of the active bacteria and yeast that this sourdough needs to grow and get big and bubbly and make awesome bread. So sourdough in general is called 100% hydration bread. And the reason for that is it is really an even mix of flour and water. So that was 200 grams of water. And now I'm adding 200 grams of the mixed flour. Okay, so we got that. Don't need the scale now. I'm going to use this spoon at this point. You can do this with your hand. At this point, it does get really messy. So I'm going to do this with the spoon. Stir it all together. So basically, kind of what you're making here is just like the starter. It'll be very similar in the texture to when you feed your starter. It's just a larger quantity. And this larger quantity is what you make things out of. In some recipes, they tell you to use the remainder of your leaven for your starter. I don't find that works very well, and the girl who taught me how to do this said never to do that. I don't do it. So, all right, there it is. The other thing that is different that I do from the recipe is I cover this now. I found that when I wasn't covering it, it was getting kind of crusty and dry around the outsides. So you can cover it with plastic. We're a plastic-free house, so I have like the, what is this, beeswax kind of things to put around, and this one isn't very sticky, so I'm also gonna get a elastic just to hold it, because I want this to stay really well hydrated, to not dry out. All right, and what I do now, so I've only used a little bit of this starter. I'm going to discard a little bit more of this and add a whole new, feed it just like I was feeding it the first time. So this is my half and half, 60 grams water, 60 grams flour. I'm gonna discard a little bit more and feed it again. And now my starter could go back in the fridge.